you want to have your super about every 30 seconds and then just be slinging shields constantly, then the Doomfang Basher build might be for you. This is a Void Titan, Sentinel Shield, Doomfang Pauldrons build. That combination has always been pretty fantastic, but with the recent roaming super buffs and the recent buffs to Sentinel Shield that were accidental at first but permanent now as of today, this build is even better. In the time I've talked, we've already got our super, so we'll just be able to pop that and just destroy a whole crowd here in a moment. It does great damage. It was accidentally overbuffed, but they put I believe 44% damage boost on it to most enemies. With Doomfang Pauldrons, you get tons of super uptime because as you get shield hits, it will just constantly regenerate. And then you just have to make sure you get some normal bashes in to recharge your shield throw. Just keep taking out enemies. You get the great roaming super damage resistance. We've lost that super, but we'll have another one back in just a minute. As a legend campaign mission, we're 15 power levels under. We're managing to stay alive despite all this enemy fire. And my mediocre gameplay. And you always have the fallback of Overshield to keep you strong and top you off if you get into a pinch. We're already about 75% of that super. And then we're just going to collect some orbs, finish off some more enemies here. Boom. Second Sentinel Shield and just a little bit over a minute. I'm going to finish off this boss and this guy. I'm Engineer. Alright, so the crux of this build is Doomfang Pauldrons. This is a original exotic from the base game, which means you can get it from any exotic source, and you probably already have it. This is a pretty straightforward exotic. It was changed a few episodes/seasons ago to give weapon surges when you get 2 to 3 void kills within a few seconds of each other, which is pretty strong, but the main effect we're going for here is when you get a powered void melee kill, you get 20% super energy. That means 5 powered void melee kills, and you have your entire super. And this also immediately grants that 4 times void weapon surge. So we're going to try and get our melee back really quick, and then we're going to try and kill stuff with it, and that's how we get our super. Now the last bit is what makes our super last forever. It's every time you get a shield throw hit, you get 10% more super energy, extending the duration. This is a fantastic exotic, and it's really starting to shine now with the roaming super buffs. But one thing you may not know about it is this works for every void super. You can use this with Twilight Arsenal. You can use it with War to Dawn. I don't know why you would, but you can. But we're going to focus on Sentinel Shield today because roaming supers are kind of new and fresh again with the buffs, and that's great. Now, your stat priorities. You want resilience. You want strength because we're leaning heavily into those powered melee kills. This one's always great. Recovery is not bad, even though we rely on Devour. And then intellect's down there. And mobility, we don't because this is a Titan, not a Hunter. I want to briefly talk about Sentinel Shield. I've included the full step from the Destiny Data Compendium, which is the largest entry I've ever seen for a super. But read this at your leisure if you want to pause. The main thing here is that throwing shields does not consume super energy. Throw shields as much as possible. Those shield throw hits restore 10% super energy. Abuse those shield throws. And when you get the normal bash hits, those will restore your shield throw energy. And with one of our aspects, we will get 2 shield throw charges, which is really helpful. On to our aspects and abilities. Our first aspect is going to be Offensive Bulwark. What this does is it buffs your melee damage. This will give you 100% increased melee damage anytime you have Overshield, which we can get pretty frequently. The other thing it does is it will make your unpowered melee hits count as powered melee hits, but they do not count for Doomfang Pauldrons. It says it specifically there, which is sad, but understandable, because it'd be way too fast otherwise. Now, how do you get Void Overshield? Our second aspect, Bastion. Every time you use your barricade, you get Void Overshield, and if you stay behind it, you get Void Overshield. It's really great. It can keep you alive in a pinch. It's really solid. It will make your barricade have a slightly longer cooldown though, so keep that in mind. Now, I already talked about super, that's gonna be Sentinel Shield. Our grenade, it's pretty flexible here, but I like to take Scatter Grenade. It has a 75% flat gain factor, one of the lowest cooldowns for Void. So it's just pretty good, and we're mainly gonna use that to get melee energy back. Now, on our melee itself, I usually take Shield Throw because you can just kind of throw it in between different attacks and stuff, and it does pretty good damage, especially with Offensive Bulwark. But you can take Shield Bash. You just have to be running around and jumping a little bit. Shield Bash is very strong and will definitely secure that kill. One thing to note, both have a 90% flat gain factor, so they're very easy to get back with other sources. Lastly, your class ability. I take Rally Barricade because the cooldown's a little bit shorter, but you can take Towering Barricade if you really want to, just for more defenses and more cover if whatever content you're doing requires that. Moving over to Fragments, these are pretty flexible. The one that's most important is Echo of Starvation. So this will give you Devour when you pick up an orb, which is really helpful for your survival. We're going to take Echo of Provision because it converts grenade ability damage into melee energy, and you can see the different rates depending on the grenade. We're taking Scatter here because it comes back pretty quick and can hit multiple enemies for those 3% melee bits, but another good one is Magnetic Grenades just because those will do 8% melee when they hit something. These are affected by the flat gain factor though, so keep that in mind, but with a 90% flat gain factor on your melee, that's okay. We're going to take Echo of Persistence because we're relying on Devour and Void Overshield, and that extra 50% duration is really helpful. And then we're going to take Reprisal. This is one of the rare fragments that gives straight super energy, and will be surrounded by 3+ enemies very frequently, so really solid. Some honorable mentions. Echo of Exchange will give you grenade energy when you get melee kills, which we do pretty frequently, so that can be good if you want to spam your grenades a little more. Echo of Undermining is really good. It's one of the best fragments because it applies Weaken on your Void Grenades, but it gives you minus 20 Discipline, and we just honestly don't have the stats for that in this build, so I don't really take it. But if you're doing more boss-centric stuff, you could use it. I probably wouldn't run this build necessarily. Maybe use it with Twilight Arsenal and swap this for one of the other fragments. Over to our mods and armor stats. Our mods are very focused on building for melee energy. We've got 2 melee kickstarts. And then we want to make as many orbs and super as we can. So we are getting orbs on our melee, we're getting orbs on weapon kills. Make sure you match that Siphon mod to whatever weapon you're using the most. And then chest is damage resistance, legs, we're just trying to get ability energy back as much as possible. So we're running the triple orb setup where you have Absolution, Invigoration, and Orbs Restoration. So if we use our melee and it's our least charged ability, we get 25% before flat gain factors, and then with it, we'll get like 22.5%. And then our class item, it's just getting some more ability energy back and just vermin up those orbs when we place Barricade. On the stats front, we want maximum resilience, maximum strength, and then we just get whatever we can from the rest. I put 1 more point in discipline, but Devour is going to cover our recovery, and Intellect you just never need to get above 30. I'm showing a few artifact perks here. These are the ones that can possibly synergize with this build. We don't have a lot of Void artifact perks currently. I expect in Act 3 we might get a few because we're getting a Void exotic weapon, so look forward to that. There's really not that much here for you. Curative Orbs is always great because it's more orbs. It's just from breaking shields. Surf Cold can be good if you're making Void Breaches, but we don't make Void Breaches with our fragments. But if you have those for some reason, then that's pretty good because it'll give you melee energy when you pick up a Void Breach. Beyond that, there's just really not that much here, so I wouldn't sweat artifact perks too much. Weapons. A big focus is getting our melee energy back. So the trait that we want is Pugilist. Pugilist does 10% melee energy back when you get a kill on most weapons, but on fusion rifles, shotguns, glaives, and actually sniper rifles too, gives 20% melee energy. Now, the natural pairing here is shotguns. So the shotguns that are going to be most effective for this are Retrofuturist, which is a Crucible drop, and it is Void, and then there's Basso Ostinato, which is from Neomuna, and both of these can roll with Pugilist and give that 20% energy. If you enhance them, that will go from 20% up to 22%. Basso Ostinato will only have it in the 4th column though, which is a little bit lame. Retrofuturist has perfect combos, but it unfortunately has a lot of traits to work through, so unless you're getting a lot of extra perks from Crucible, this can be pretty challenging, and it takes 3 engrams to focus from Shax right now. One good fallback here is Perfect Paradox from episode Echoes. If you have access to that, it's a kinetic shotgun, but it's really easy to farm. You can build up engrams pretty passively if you just go get that artifact from Failsafe. You do have to complete all the story to get to Perfect Paradox, but it's a really solid shotgun, has great perk combinations, and pretty easy to get Pugilist on. Lastly, Monte Carlo gives you melee energy on hits. It's a really solid exotic, and it's a good backup here, and it especially works on large enemies that you can't necessarily kill very easily because you can just keep shooting them to get hits. So now I just want to show you through another section of gameplay. This is the opening of Tomb of Elders. It's a frantic encounter with a lot of enemies from a lot of different directions, but it's kind of a good survival test and just fun for roaming supers because you can pop them pretty frequently and there's enough enemies to use on them. So you can see when we have that melee up, we're throwing it into enemies, get a big surge of super energy. We're already at like 75%, which is just crazy. And we get the shotgun kills. Devour is doing a lot of work here, keeping us alive. Sometimes I throw the shield and I throw it at a strong enemy. It doesn't kill anything, but it's okay. We got our shield back again already, and now we're popping our super. Look, I've unlocked a subclass. I really wish they'd fix this bug because it drives me crazy. But you can see we just churn through a main enemy and a few other enemies. Once you churn through the main enemies, just throw that shield as much as possible. If you see the feed in the bottom left, you will see orbs left and right. I forgot to mention this on the mods page, but we're using power preservation, so every kill will give us an extra orb, which is only for our allies, but that can be really effective if you have a whole team running power preservation. So, first super's down already. That's okay. Enemies have built up just a little bit here, and we're not reloaded on anything. I'm just going to kind of keep throwing those shields, getting our super back. In terms of roaming super generation, shotguns are not the most efficient because primaries are more efficient than specials, but it still works pretty well, and we're getting the bulk of our super energy from those powered melee kills. In very high-end activities, this may be a little bit harder, so there will be a limit to this, and you're going to have to be a little bit more careful about when you throw those melees, but that's just something to keep in mind. Remember to collect those orbs. Every orb also reprocs Devour, which is additional healing. And you can see we've picked up some orbs, got some melee kills, and have our Sentinel Shield again. So we're just going to work on this boss here. Got the damage resistance. Just going to hit him every so often and then throw a shield through him so that we can get some more hits on other enemies and kind of wipe them out. Got some extra enemies here. These are unfortunately a little bit tanky, but getting those hits so that we can keep the super going. It's a little bit hard to keep up on bosses, but you can see we've knocked out about 75% of his health. Almost gets us down here, but luckily we have Bastion, and then it's instantly covered. Void Overshields were buffed this season for 70% damage resistance, which is fantastic. And then the boss is done. Pretty straightforward. So just to summarize that gameplay loop, use your barricade for every shield to get the stronger melees, throw the shield or shield bash for your super, shotgun for your melee energy back, and then just keep repeating until you have your super, and then pop it when you need to. On bosses, you generally want to save your super for that boss. If you can get some rapid void kills or a powered melee kill, you get that 4 times void weapon surge, so then you can unload your void heavy, and then just use your super as needed. And that's pretty much all I've got for the build. Thanks again for watching. Hope you're enjoying it. Not sure what I'm doing next because I can't really find a good void roaming super build for Hunter, but that's just kind of where it's at right now. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Love answering them, like interacting with the community, and once again, really appreciate all the support. That's all I've got. Have a great one.